When you're scrolling through endless cheap speaker bundles, it's easy to think you're saving a buck, only to end up with a set of drivers that sound like they belong in a bedroom TV rather than a living room theater. I've been there, watching a great deal turn into a nightly disappointment because the bass was weak, the highs were tinny, and the whole thing just didn't fill the room the way I'd imagined. That hesitation is what made me dig deep into the Klipsch Reference Premier RP8000 FII floor-standing speakers paired with the Onkyo TXNR 6100 7.2 channel receiver before I even pressed record. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What you're really buying isn't just a pair of cones and a metal cabinet, it's an ecosystem that has to play nice with your room's dimensions, your source material, and the way you actually use your system day to day. The first thing I looked at was the bigger horn, better sound claim that Klipsch pushes. In a real house, that translates to a louder, more forward-focused mid-range that can sit comfortably in a moderate-sized living room without needing a separate subwoofer to carry the low end. When I set these up in a 14 by 20 foot space with a modest amount of acoustic treatment, just a couple of heavy curtains and a rug, the horn-loaded tweeter really helped keep dialogue clear in movies like Blade Runner 2049. Even when the soundtrack swelled with synth pads. The Onkyo receiver, with its THX Select Certification, brought a level of processing that kept the soundstage stable, so the left-right imaging stayed tight whether I was watching a sports game or listening to a live jazz record. Now, who should actually consider spending the premium on this combo? If you're the kind of listener who watches a lot of high-definition content, 4K Blu-ray, streaming services that support Dolby Atmos, or even gaming on a next-gen console, the RP8000 FII's 8-inch Cerametallic woofers and titanium diaphragm tweeter give you the dynamics you need to feel that extra depth. The Onkyo's refined Atmos connections make it simple to route height channels without hunting through menus, which is a huge time saver if you're not a tech-savvy person. Families that love movie nights, couples who appreciate a soundtrack that can move you from a whisper to an explosion without distortion, and audiophiles who want a speaker that can hold its own in a larger room will find real value here. On the flip side, if your listening habits are limited to casual TV watching in a small apartment, or you're on a tight budget and can't comfortably fit two floor-standing towers without compromising floor space, this might feel like overkill. The speakers are tall and have a substantial footprint. They're not something you can tuck behind a couch without losing the intended dispersion. Also, the Onkyo receiver, while feature-rich, leans heavily into the home theater side of things. Its music-only modes are competent but not as nuanced as a dedicated stereo amp. If you're purely a music-first listener who prefers a minimalist setup, a bookshelf speaker paired with a dedicated stereo amp could give you more tailored sound without the extra channels you'll never use. Talking practical strengths, the horn-loaded tweeter does more than just sound big. In my daily routine, switching from a news podcast in the morning to a high-octane action film in the evening, the highs stayed crisp without the harshness that often plagues cheaper horn designs. The Cerametallic woofers, a blend of ceramic and metal fibers, delivered a bass that was tight enough to keep the rhythm grounded, yet not so boomy that it overpowers the mids. One real-world test I ran was playing a low-frequency test tone at 30 Hz while sitting on a couch 2 meters away. The room didn't rattle, but I could still feel the thump, which is exactly what you want for home theater immersion without neighbor complaints. The Onkyo TXNR 6100's THX certification isn't just a badge, it means the receiver has passed rigorous tests for channel balance, dynamic range, and low distortion playback. In practice, this showed up when I used the receiver's built-in room calibration feature, AccuEQ. After a quick sweep, the system automatically adjusted to the room's acoustic quirks, softening a slight echo behind the left speaker and boosting a minor dip in the center channel. The result was a seamless front-center dialogue that didn't get lost during fast-paced action scenes, something many budget receivers struggle with. However, there are a couple of hidden trade-offs that deserve mention. First, the speakers demand a decent amount of power to hit their sweet spot. I paired them with the Onkyo at full volume during a gaming session, and the receiver stayed comfortably cool, but when I pushed the bass beyond 80 dB SPL, the Onkyo's heatsink began to warm noticeably. That's a sign you'll need good ventilation around the receiver if you plan to crank it up for parties. Second, the RP8000 FII's finish walnut looks stunning, but it's also prone to showing fingerprints and dust more than a matte black model would. In a high-traffic family room, you'll find yourself wiping the cabinets more often than you might expect.